the more I exercise, the more weight I lose.
Just education around nutrition and thinking that dieting meant bland, boring, torturous food.
Do it once, do it right, and you don't have to do it again.
Able to adapt the approach to suit the lifestyle that you live.
So just like little tiny mindset shifts can really help the approach you have to a dieting phase.
This is the Future Fitness Lifestyle, the podcast for high achievers who want to take control of their long-term physical and mental well-being. I'm Matt Cooney, and every week we break down the habits, mindset and strategies to build lasting health, energy and strength without sacrificing your career, family or lifestyle. No quick fixes, no fads, just real sustainable results. Because the choices you make today determine the future you step into. Ready to level up? Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode. I'm just telling the guys I'm not doing intros anymore because it's already an intro. We just repeat ourselves, and I'm not going to ask everyone how they are because that's only small talk. What we're going to do is actually get into the topic straight away. So we've covered stress for the last what feels like 3 months, but now we're going to move on to fat loss because all of us here, we have a full house today. 5 of us are all on photo shoot prep. We're 11 weeks, 4 days away from the photo shoot. Who's counting? I think today. So,
oh my God, you cut the 12 weeks.
Yeah, we're down already. That's what my app is. The countdown is like 11. I feel like it's 12, but then when I see it, it's like 11 and 3. So I thought it's a good time for us, since we're all dieting, to what common mistakes that we see with people when they try to start a fat loss diet, or in general, maybe some of us have made them in the past. So first question, anyone want to give an insight to maybe some mistakes they've made when they started a diet in the past?
I would say a mistake that I've made, or maybe like a common one I see with the people, is probably starting their calories too low. That's probably like, I know like everyone starts a dieting phase and their usual goals are, to get results as quick as possible. So I see it happening a lot of people where they'll start their dieting phase like as low calories as possible, and especially like if people are using apps like MyFitnessPal and you go onto the app, you tell them your details, how much weight you want to lose, it's going to set you this crazy low target like 1200 calories or 1100 calories, which is not realistic. And people will start that. You might feel okay for a couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks. But if you start a diet with your calories too low, you're going to burn yourself out quickly. And not only that, but it doesn't really give you any room to change or make adjustments if your progress starts to stall or slow down. And yeah, a big thing that we always kind of say is think of fat loss like a marathon, not a sprint. If you come out the gates sprinting, you're not going to make it to the finish line. Whereas if you set yourself a sustainable, realistic deficit and then adjust as needed, you're going to be able to diet for a lot longer and get a lot more than from your progress. So yeah, that's probably my main problem that I see with people, but there's millions.
I would say for me, a mistake I'd probably made in the past is probably overtraining, thinking that I need to train every day, thinking that I need to, okay, a diet means that the more I exercise, the more weight I lose, when in reality, the formula does not work like that. And I was missing a big component of that, which is obviously rest and recovery, which probably in my early 20s and that I didn't feel like I needed, and my body needed, when of course it did. But yeah, probably a mistake for me. There is more, but I just said that one came to my mind would be definitely thinking that I needed to train every single day.
Yeah, I think with what you said there with training every single day as well, like a lot of people will try and exercise their way to fat loss, but people don't understand that with exercise, it really only accounts for like a small portion of the calories that you burn every day. So like, you could be doing like 2 hours on the cross trainer, but like you could probably eat that in 5 minutes. So it's really impossible to burn off the calories that you're consuming. And like for people, I think it's unrealistic to try and exercise to lose weight. I always kind of like to do that with clients where I'm like, okay, your diet and your activity levels are going to get you fat loss and progress. Your training, your exercise then is, we're not doing that to lose weight. we're doing that to get stronger, build muscle, manage stress, improve your sleep, not actually to lose weight. I definitely think that's a big one.
Yeah, I'd second both of those. And then my mistake I would have made back in the day would have been just education around nutrition and thinking that dieting meant bland, boring, torturous food. Half a grapefruit and some cottage cheese in the morning and then some lettuce. So definitely, yeah, the education around food and knowing kind of what, like the protein and carbs and fats and how to balance that out was probably a huge mistake I made back in the day.
I think all of them. Definitely. And even like what you were saying, Tommy, like with over exercising as well, I think that nearly made dieting harder in the past, because the more you're exercising, it does actually make you that bit hungrier, and then that impacts adherence. But I think the biggest mistake that I would have made is not really understanding what you're doing to achieve the results is what you have to kind of continue doing in a way to maintain them. So maybe going with approaches that, like, I wouldn't have been able to sustain long term, like that, too low calories, too much training or cardio or activity levels, or just even like that as well, bro, like eating miserable food.
I'd say another one would also be like the tracking process and actually tracking, because I think I know for women as well, like you'd step into the scales probably the days you feel the worst, and then you're like, nothing's happening, rather than actually being more consistent with tracking. And also knowing like delayed gratification, that you need to stay consistent at it for a bit before you'll see like a result. That was also another huge thing, that, you do it for like 2 weeks and you're like, fucking nothing's happening. Let's restrict more. Let's exercise more.
I can definitely relate to that as well. Like, I remember when I was younger, no matter what I did, I was not able to lose weight. And I actually took me years to figure it out. But what was actually happening to me was I'd start this diet, do it for like 2 weeks, wasn't seeing any progress. And I'd just be like, this isn't working. And, I'd give up. And then I'm back to square one and I have to start over every time. Whereas now I kind of actually understand that I'm not going to see progress in 2 weeks. It's not an overnight process. And if you're consistent for long enough, you will see that. And I definitely notice, even for myself and for a lot of women, most of the women that I coach, like the scales can be a little bit of a bitch, because it doesn't actually move as you would expect it to. And, even for myself as an example, I've done a dieting phase in the past where my weight has not changed for 4 or 5 weeks. And it's gone up, down maybe a pound, up again. And it's kind of sitting around the same 2 to 3 pounds for 5 or 6 weeks. And then out of nowhere, I see this big, massive drop and I lose a couple of pounds within a few days. And that's, well, like what Roshan was saying there, delayed gratification. Sometimes the scales isn't going to play ball, but the only way for you to see the progress is to just keep the head down and not giving up, because it will always pay off.
Yeah, I always say, think of the scales as like the mean girl in school. As soon as you start feeling good, it's gonna try and make you feel bad about yourself.
The battery is nearly gone on my scales at the moment, so the first time I stand on it, it says, so I'm delighted every morning.
No way. That's my girl.
No way, brilliant.
And I think that's, obviously the ladies have touched on it, mistake. Even myself, that I can be heavily consumed by the weight on the scales, and thinking that that's the only measure of my progress is my weight in the morning, when in reality there's so many different health markers that you can track to be able to understand that your body is working in the right direction. But just because the weight on the scales may have not moved, or maybe you might have gone up in a direction, that doesn't mean that you've fallen off track or you've been making mistakes. As obviously the ladies will speak more into about hormones and that, but there's so many different factors that can influence your weight and that. But that's probably a mistake that I made in the past, is just being overly consumed about the weight on the scales and the inevitable stress then that follows because of that.
Yeah, I definitely think the scales is probably the main people the main reason people like end up kind of sabotaging themselves if they just get overly focused on the number and they're not actually focusing on what the right things. They're just kind of getting consumed by that, because with the scales, like, there is literally zero control over it. There's no way that you can stop these fluctuations no matter what you do. Like, even if you're a robot locked into a room eating the same things every day, there's still so many things going on between, like, hormonal fluctuation, your digestion, your hydration status, if you've had a bad night's sleep, if you're under a lot of stress, if you've done like a tough workout and you've got training inflammation. There's like a million different reasons why the scales is going to fluctuate, and it's just kind of important to understand that it's normal. But if you can just step on the scales, weigh yourself, step off, record it, forget about it, move on, and just keep going, it will show the progress in time. And I think that's definitely, like, you could probably do like a full podcast on the weighing scales, I'd say.
Yeah.
And
I think
And I
that's why
think-
it's so important as well to do. I think that's why it's so important as well to do like photos,
Mm-hmm.
so that like when the scales is driving you mad, last mad. When the scales is driving you mad, that you can have that like comparison of photos to be like, okay, even though the scales is kind of maybe only coming down a pound and a half, this is what the difference in your body composition is.
Yeah, and I see that with a lot of clients, even like they might check in after a couple of weeks and the scales might be pretty much the same, or maybe half a pound. But when you actually look at the picture side by side and you're like, okay, the scales is not doing you justice here. And I think that's why it's really important when people are tracking their progress, especially girls, that you're not just weighing yourself, but you're looking at maybe either measurements or pictures. If you're doing, at least, I would definitely do pictures and either weight or measurements as well. But yeah, I think that's the main reason that people get frustrated with the scales.
when you see people who actually quote unquote fall off the wagon, 9 times out of 10, it's because of the scales not moving the direction that they want. And you guys all kind of touched on the common mistakes, and a lot of people do all of them. So they tend to go on low calories, try to do too much exercise, then they don't know how to monitor their progress. So when the scales goes up, they're like, I'm doing all this and the scales is going up. Must be me, something wrong with me. And then they obviously can't sustain that mindset, goes kind of off track as well. And then they just go through this perpetual kind of cycle. So that's where I had 3 main ones that I see for people starting a diet, which we've kind of covered. The first one is low calories. The second one is actually the diet being emotionally driven versus being planned out. And the third one is just the all or nothing approach, where people just go from zero to 100. The going back to low calories, Eve, you said it first. It's like, I think as well, people have this belief sometimes that just eating less is better. So it's like the less I can eat, the better. And like, you'll often hear when we give people calories, they'll be like, I couldn't possibly eat that many calories. And you're like, tell me what you've been doing every weekend for the last 6 months. Show me on the camera, and I'll show you that you've been consuming about 4 times that amount. I think that's it. Eve, you said it's like when you start on really, really low calories, it's like, where do you go from there? Because you can't go, do you just keep going lower? I think a lot of people, it's not even low calorie. They go low calorie, they go low protein. Half the people are going low carb as well. So I don't know what they're even eating, And it's one of those things, like, I always kind of think of it myself. I'm like, I would consider myself quite in the top tier when it comes to sticking to a diet. We've done, this is our 10th photo shoot, my 10th photo shoot prep. Tommy, you've competed as well, which is essentially like the Olympics for dieting. It's as extreme as you can get. I've done 10 photo shoots, competed in bodybuilding. I wouldn't be able to stick to an extreme diet or these cleanse, whatever, all those bad things. Like, I would not be able to do it. But yet the average person kind of thinks they should, or then feels bad for not being able to, And it's just like, I don't know, don't get it.
I can't remember where
a lot
you
of
said
people.
it.
Go on, Sharon.
No, I just can't remember where you said it before, Matt, but I definitely think it was you who said it. like when it comes to dieting, it's like trying to, like a burglar trying to rob a house without setting off an alarm. You know, like you go in slowly and easy, like you don't go straight in bulldozing full steam ahead.
Love that.
Yeah, it was
Like,
actually
it's you.
explaining it.
Well, we'll say you made it up.
No, I explained it in a check-in years ago to Tommy Martin, actually, who was trying to do that. And I was like, I gave the analogy, I was like, what you're trying to do with a diet is, yeah, you're trying to rob a house. The way you want to rob a house is you want to go in quietly, you know, undo the alarm, creep around, take the stuff you need and get out. And I was like, with this crash dieting, what you're doing is picking up a wheelbarrow and throwing it through the window. The alarm is going off everywhere, and you're then trying to get in and out. It's not working. And I don't even know how I made that up, but essentially that's what happens with these crash diets. And that's where I think the all or nothing approach ties into that. So for a lot of us, this is where a lot of extreme things can be attractive. You know, whether it's fasting, keto, all these restrictive diets, because we tend to want to eliminate things instead of substitute it. And if you think about it, if you're, say, maybe you're drinking alcohol every night, or you're binging on crap food, if you just eliminate that, what are you going to do? You're just going to like sit there and twiddle your thumbs? You probably want to actually substitute it for something else. Because if you just eliminate it and you don't substitute it, you're going to nearly feel like FOMO, like, what am I meant to do here? And it's the same thing with cutting. People try to cut out things instead of cutting down. And it's like, cutting out seems like the most attractive. Just like, I'm never doing this again. But cutting down is like nearly boring, you know, moderation. So that's why I think a lot of people we tend to lean to that extreme approaches, usually because we want the fastest results, not knowing that they're actually slowing us down, because you can't sustain it. You're continually going in this loop of gaining the same few pounds, doing a diet for 2 or 3 weeks, versus if you actually go a little bit slower and sustainable. I think it was Lane Norton that said it, do it once, do it right, and you don't have to do it again. So I understand it though, I do, in terms of our human nature to want to be all in, but it just doesn't work that way for 99.9% of people.
And some
you see that with a lot of people as well.
Go on, Eve.
Sorry, you see that with a lot of people as well. Like, you know, they're going 100% all in, and they'll cut out all their favorite foods. They'll try to live off poverty calories, or, you know, they've basically cut out their favorite foods, and it's not sustainable at all. Like, I see it with a lot of people that like just cutting out chocolate, or cut out bread, or cut out potatoes. But like, if you enjoy those foods and you want to have them as part of your diet, if you're trying to cut them out, you know, it's not going to be sustainable. And then when you are in a situation where you have chocolate or something like that, you'll end up binging or overeating on it. And a good example of that is kind of like Lent. Like, people will give up chocolate for Lent, thinking that, oh, this is great, I'm going to give up chocolate. But on the last day of Lent, because you've given it up for so long, you love it, you miss it, you crave it. What happens? You smash 6 Easter eggs and you feel sick. So like, people need to see that if you love having chocolate, like, and you're dieting, you can have chocolate every single day. You can actually include that. And if you're including foods you enjoy, then it's sustainable. You're going to be able to do it for as long as you need to, and you're not going to hate the process.
Tommy, that just reminded me of your cupboard for the competition. It was like,
Still have that video. Oh yeah, I was honestly, I was thinking of that myself when you were talking first, Matt, and then he was talking about the Easter eggs, and particularly when she said the word sick, but we won't go into that today. But when you're talking about the all or nothing approach, a lot of that stems from people struggling with perfectionism, or fear of failure, or having rigid thinking, and they're driven by the need to be perfect with whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, when we all know perfection is just an illusion. It's something that we all chase, but we can never achieve because it's impossible to others. And a lot of the people who operate and function in that way usually tend to burn out because they're chasing this impossible way of living, and it's trying to break that down and get people to understand, kind of like what you were saying, is that you don't have to go all in on day one, throw everything out of the cupboard, restrict yourself, overtrain, be this robotic person who is going to live this way for the rest of your life, when, unless you're Brian Johnson. He just gets the point. I hope he's listened to our podcast. We've called him up a few times.
First for the trial runs.
I've actually done some posts on him as well, though, giving him props for talking about sleep, in fairness. But yeah, it's so true. And I think that's where the other mistake, a lot of dieting for people starts by being emotionally driven. So they feel like crap. So it's like on Sunday, they eat a load of crap. It's like Monday, that's where the extreme rigid approach comes, and that's the difference I find with a lot of more experienced people who live that lifestyle all year round. And like for all of us here, our dieting phase was started, we knew we were starting it a few months ago. It was planned well in advance versus just, it's Monday, I feel like crap, I need to diet, I need to do something. And there's no actual thought process put into it, or strategy, or even thinking ahead. It's just like, today I'm going to eat nothing, and it's like, versus going, okay, I'm actually dieting for the next 12 weeks. This is what I have on. This is the approach I'm going to take. This is the kind of steps that we're going to use over this period of time. And for most people, I think you mentioned knowledge, Roisin, earlier. They don't really have the knowledge to do that, because, and if you've never done it, if you haven't experienced it, or not even experienced it once, went through it, all of us here, I think we're on a combined, I was close to 50, no, I'd say 40 photo preps between us all. And we're still learning each time. There's still different things that we do, different ways we approach it. That's just another definite thing that I see with a lot of people.
And I just want to jump in there really quick, Matt, because you just gave me a thought too when you said that, is that our bodies are changing. So my body now at 33 years of age, going 34 next month. When was I did my first one? So 9 years ago, 3, 5, so like 25 years old. My body is not the same right now as it was when I first did that. And that's where coaching comes in, about being able to adapt the approach to suit the lifestyle that you live, because I'm living a totally different lifestyle right now to I am at 25 years old. That's why it's never just one approach. It's about being able to properly manage and cope with your lifestyle. And obviously as a coach, that's why it's important to be able to understand the client and the client's needs.
Yeah. And when you're this, like, especially in your piece and above, again, all of us have busy lives and already have a lot going on. So if you're trying to change everything at once and do this big, go from like, absolute zero to hero, and you're all of a sudden training 7 days a week, you're trying to meal prep, you're trying to do all this stuff, and then you also have to earn a living, go to work, look after your kids, probably talk to your other half at some stage during the week. That's where people, they just try to do this. Eve's laughing because we probably haven't talked in this week yet, but you're trying to do all this. Like, it's just not, even on paper, you can put it on paper and it looks great. Like, in reality, it just does not work. And that's why that slow and steady approach is important. And also understanding you can actually get a lot from a little. So that's even something for me, starting the diet. And that's kind of the next phase I want to go through, is like tips for people starting. Like, that's one, even for me, I'm actually starting this week. One thing I'm doing is what I just call simple swaps. For me, cappuccino swapped for an Americano. I'm saving, if I have 2 of them a day, that's 100 to 200 calories I'm saving. Going from olive oil to 1 cal spray in my dinner or lunch, that's 100 to 200 calories saved. Swapping from like nuts to berries in my yogurt in the evening, that's another 100 calories. That is about 500 calories a day saved, 3,500 per week. I essentially haven't done much there. That's, without doing anything. So I think that's a really easy thing for a lot of people to do, is when they're going into a dieting phase. It's just like, take a minute to look at what you're currently doing and go, okay, what can I, and this is where education is important, what can I do here to make simple changes to my food or my routine, my habits, that are going to give me a big return, and that are also easy to do, because you want to reduce the amount of friction it takes to do things. Because again, easy example, if you have to go to the gym, but the gym is 5.5 hours away, very, very hard. If you walk out your front door and the gym is in front of you, very easy to go to the gym. You can't even get outside the door without getting to the gym. So again, if you take that extreme example, break it down into a diet or your nutrition, you're going to set yourself up for success.
Yeah,
Or
and
hard
I think
things as well, like they're simple swaps, but I definitely think for me, like since I've started dieting phase, one of the main things I did just to kind of make it simpler is cut out my weekly almond croissant. And I had
all right.
I had to watch you eat an almond croissant last weekend. Oh, that is a form of torture.
Everybody's
Yeah.
energy just dropped about 3 levels there.
Can we give it a moment for the almond croissants that are being
A
missed?
moment of time.
March 30th in Breeze. Eve, you're having one.
Roshan, Sharon, you were going to say something there for.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think another huge thing as well is the mindset and the little shifts you can make in your mindset. Because I know even for me, when I started dieting, and it was always this like punishment. Like I was going to the gym because I was feeling guilty, and it was this like punishing process. Whereas when you can change your mindset, and instead of thinking I have to go to the gym to lose weight, be like, oh, I get to go to the gym to gain strength, you know? Or restricting your food, instead of looking at it as like, oh, I have to give up all this, and you know, I have to cut down in like with an energy of punishment or force. You get to be like, oh no, I get to, like, you know, the food that I'm putting into my body is going to do so much for it. So just like little tiny mindset shifts can really help the approach you have to a dieting phase, and just working out and eating right in general.
With me, and I see it a lot with clients a lot, and just people in general, people are at a starting point and they have a picture in their mind of how they want to look and how they want to feel in, let's say, a particular weight, but it's so far away, and the distance between where they're at and where they want to get is very overwhelming. And a lot of people get caught up in that. It's like, how the hell am I going to be able to do this? Using me as an example, like me starting this prep right now, I've like in around like 180 pounds, and usually have to get down to like 168. So I'm like, I'm not thinking about I have to lose 12 pounds. I'm simply just taking it day by day, taking things, okay, well, what do I need to do today that is going to help me to achieve the result that I need in like 12 weeks, but just focusing on the daily things rather than being overwhelmed by, oh my God, I'm never going to get to lose like 12 pounds in this time period. I'm just not going to be able to do that. It's just trying to ground yourself and just to trust. Trust is a big thing. I always say that, particularly our forestry group, is just trust the coaches. And if you put in the work and you follow the plan and you trust yourself and you trust the coaches, the results will come. So for me, a big thing is just removing the overwhelmment of everything that comes with it and just taking it day by day.
I thought you were going to use your marathon, Tommy, as the example there, because I'm like, you're going to run.
That's another good one.
You're going to run 42k in like 10 days. So yeah, that was obviously overwhelming when you put on the runners the first time. I think it was December, and got back running at like 7k or something. So that is a long way to go. But you're here now. What are you, 10 days away?
It is. It's actually funny. I only thought of that this morning because I was listening to Eve, your voice now. We were talking about 26k. And I actually remember that. I remember time like thinking, just when I started it the second time, it was actually more overwhelming the second time doing it, because I suppose I knew what I kind of had to do. But it's the same method, same methodology. Just saying, okay, I just need to do 10k today. I need to do 12k next week. Just taking it literally a week by week and just focusing on that rather than, oh my God, I need to run 42k. That's the whole reasoning behind training, is that you pace yourself and you build yourself up to that, rather than being like, Hey, I'm going to run 4K in the morning. Who's going to join me?
Yeah. And that's where the whole, even the analogy, it's for fat loss being, Eve said it earlier, being a marathon, not a sprint. It's honestly the exact same in terms of like breaking it down week by week, run by run, day by day. And then it's like just focusing on the next one, not running the marathon. It's just like get to 8K. The next one is 10 or whatever it is, and you're just taking these steps in the right direction, knowing that once you continue, and that's where even we talk with scales, delayed gratification, once you continue to take the right steps, you're going to get there. Whereas that's where a lot of people get caught up, I think, with not seeing the results now or feeling like they're so far away. And it's a cliche of, about the process, not the journey or destination, but it is true, because when it's nearly like, I like to look at it, you nearly know that where you're going, you know the destination, but don't worry about it. Like, don't ever even think about it. Just think of doing the things you need to do, and eventually you'll get to the destination.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Matt. I was really waiting for you to finish, and I was like, that's the most important thing, is people forget to enjoy the journey itself. Because if you're always thinking about the end point, then you're never present in what you're doing, and you're never really allowing yourself to feel the ups and the downs. Because just like with all of us, there'll be hard days and there'll be great days. But it's just about being able to accept them and ride in with them.
So what I want to go through now, I'm going to go through the other, I talked about simple swaps that I'm doing starting my diet. I have kind of 4 more that I've done personally, and I'll explain them, and then we'll get you guys to touch on it, or if there's anything else that you guys do personally that help. So that first one is just making those simple swaps. Second one for me is environment. And I like to use like out of sight, out of mind. So again, getting the things that, like the food in the house, again, if you have a load of food in the house that you're more likely to overconsume, get rid of it. If you can't, get it out of eyesight. And essentially here, this is just trying to make it as easy as possible to be consistent. I would say I have pretty good discipline and willpower, but like any of us, that can get very easily drained if you're constantly having to use it. So the less you can use it, the better. And then for me, that kind of bleeds into the next one, which is just having an eating structure. I like the KISS analogy, keep it simple, stupid. And that, for me, reduces decision fatigue. So this is where, especially starting out, I want to give myself the least amount of decisions possible. I will just basically eat pretty much the same thing each day, especially just to get me started, because it's all about getting momentum going. So that's the third one. Fourth one for me is, I'll call it forecasting, but it's actually knowing where I'm having my start point and having an idea of what's to come. So this obviously comes from experience as well, is knowing, even for me, where my calories, where my steps and that are starting. I have an idea already where they're going to finish. It's not going to be exact, but I already know. So it's like, I know the start point, I know nearly where I'm going to end. I know I have a diet break coming up. Obviously, we have the retreat. I know I have the long runs to do, the half marathon. So they're all put in. So I have an understanding of, kind of like creating a timeline of the 12 weeks and go, okay, this is what's on. And this is why we always talk about pre-planning, which is kind of into the last one for me, which is what I call a pre-diet phase or priming. It's kind of the opposite of what I said, the mistake that people make, where they usually just emotionally go from like Sunday, I need to do something, Monday, start a diet. I knew I was starting this diet this week months ago. I literally, I estimated the weight I'd be starting. I'm actually that exact weight because of essentially the lifestyle I live. Like, the only change for me starting a diet is just tracking my food now to start. And that's a lot easier. That's the only thing I have to focus on this week versus having to change my schedule, change my food choices, change everything, at once. It's those 5 things make it quite, I won't say easy for me, because losing body fat is never easy for any of us. I don't think, even after, 9 years in, 10 years, it still doesn't get any easier. We just get better at doing it, or we just keep coming back for some reason. But those 5 things, I think, if you could take them into your own diet, or at least some of them, I think it will help you a lot. Because, Tom, you mentioned overwhelm. that kind of combats against it, you know. Does anyone have any else or anything maybe disagree or agree?
Yeah, I definitely think environment.
I got to jump there. I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Bye,
Eve has to
Tommy.
as
Bye,
well, I
Tommy.
think.
Bye, guys.
We'll finish off.
I definitely think environment. That's a massive one. Out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm. And I think also like meal prepping, like having the food kind of ready and just taking that, like Matt was saying, the guesswork out of it, and just trying to just prep yourself in the best way so that everything kind of flows nicely. Because when you get hungry, your mind can go other places.
Yeah. And it's essentially just not leaving things to chance. That's what you were saying. You were both saying it's like the more prepared you can get, the more you can kind of curate your environment. You're just doing all these. You're just trying to make it easier for yourself to stay consistent and adherent, which is essentially the key to success long term.
And I think as well, a really, really important one, and Eve even reminded me of this week as well, there will be weeks where there's setbacks, but it's just kind of doing what you can on those weeks.
Control the controllables.
Control the controllables. Like, you mightn't be able to do everything that you had planned, but what can you do?
I have a question actually for you. Does anyone find anything difficult about starting a diet?
No, I think kind of like you, because I know it's coming, I'm kind of getting myself prepped for it. And like, I feel now I'm excited to like go all in kind of and spend the next couple of weeks focusing on it. But that's because like you, I've been like prepping. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to just head down and get into it.
I
think getting into it.
Yeah, go ahead.
That getting into it, that like finding your rhythm for the first couple of weeks, that's something I'm struggling with at the moment.
That's what I was going to say. I find difficult is I find people with dieting are like, you kind of have two camps. You have this camp that's like nearly the all or nothing. They like to go head first in and just go everything, smash everything, They have that mentality. And then you have these people who are like slow burners. It takes them a while to kind of get into the groove. I found that over the years, I'm more of that slow burner, which I've tried to change by using the things that I've talked about, but I still do, even mentally. You said it, Roisin, about the mindset switch. I kind of have to get into that diet mode. And I think you said it, Shane, the rhythm. It's finding a rhythm for me. And I nearly dread it in a way, but I know once I get like 10 days of, into it consistency, it kind of clicks. But I think it's good for people to know that that happens. It's an actual thing,
I think once you have a few under your belt, like I think because this is what my third, I think, because I'm like, oh, I want to see what I can do better personally. I'm like, okay, now I have that momentum to be like, I want to show up better than I did last year. And I think that's a nice little push to have, because you just want to do a little bit better from yourself last year, which kind of helps me when I do have those low moments. I'm like, no, come on, we've got this. We did it last year, we did it the year before, we can do it again, just a little bit better.
It's like new levels, new devils. It's always the ability to push yourself that little bit further is probably what keeps you coming back in a way, and I do think dieting is a skill as well. So it's like getting the experience, learning the lessons from it. And, a lot of what we all shared, again, is from making mistakes or seeing patterns from a lot of people doing similar in the past, So I think if people can take that mentality to it as well, because a lot of people feel like it's black and white, like yes or no, you failed or you didn't, versus going, actually, this time was better than the last, or I learned this, with that, okay, next time, this is what I need to do better, and different things. And that's where it's kind of having that growth mindset towards the process,
Yeah, and I think it's important as well. It's like dieting, it's not just about losing weight. Like we all know from photo shoot preps, you learn so much more about who you are as a person through the dieting phase, because you have to learn to say no to certain things that you probably would have just said yes to in the past. And you have to put yourself first and go into those uncomfortable situations, or go on a night out and not drink, and say, all these things that you're learning a lot more about yourself rather than, just losing weight and gaining muscle. Which I think that's why I love the whole, like you said, the process of photo shoot prep comes with so much more.
And I think understanding as well, like we've done, what's this, 9? This is year 9. So like every time at the same time of the year, we have been dieting for the last 9 years. But there has been no 9 diets that's the same, you know, so you can't be like, okay, but the last time I dieted, blah, blah, blah. It's not the same. Your life is different. Your job could be different, you know, and then maybe people, and I do see this sometimes, is kind of the frustration that comes with, but years ago, I could just start a diet and I would see so much progress in the first few weeks. But it was like, you know, how different your body was years ago, how different your lifestyle was. That frustration can create friction. So it's like going with what you have right now, even if it is a little bit of slow burn in the beginning.
I think we all have it as well. Like everyone will have those thoughts of like comparing to like last year or when you were younger or ever, like all those things, and even doubts and days where you want to go F this and all these things. I always try to explain, I think everybody has the same things. It's just whether you listen to them, how you manage them, or even looking at volume. It's like, if you can just turn it down and just keep it there and go, right, just turn that down. I know I'm feeling like that, versus, you know, what happens sometimes is it just keeps getting louder and then they can't handle it, and then that's where you make those decisions, you know, where you either give up or do things that you maybe don't bring you towards that goal.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's important, I think, to have coaches or people that are experienced, because a lot of people don't have that awareness that those thoughts are like that, oh, I can turn this down, that I'm on the right track. So I think that's very important to have that education behind it before you do go into something like this.
Clarity and reassurance is very helpful for anybody, even for myself, even experienced people. It's like outside eyes is always good, or someone to even just, you know, give you the nod, to be like, it's fine, keep going. It's because, yeah, we are all emotional creatures. So yeah, I think there's a lot of lessons to be taken from today, and hopefully there's some value in it for people on their own journeys, and especially starting out a diet, because I feel like if you can start as you mean to go on, if you can understand this and put the right pieces of the puzzle in place, it's going to help you be successful long term. So we have to finish. We're going to finish with a question, which is funny. What recent experience made you feel old? We've talked about being old a lot, I think, today. We're definitely all not the same as we were 9 years ago when we first did our first photo shoot.
I think going to Grace's parent-teacher meetings, to all my secondary school teachers, I was like, what?
Yeah.
That made me feel really old. Or even Tommy saying 9 years ago when we were doing our first photo shoot, we were 25. I was like, what? We're old.
I think I'm getting so many of them lately, including my knee my knee is giving me trouble. I've never had knee pain. And somebody...
That's a sign.
Yes, Luke Lehman said this last year. He was like, when you turn 35, you wake up and you get these pains that you've never had before. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm 35. I have got knee pain. I've never had knee pain in my life. I'm blaming him. He manifested it for me. But yeah, that makes me feel old when I say on my knees. How would you?
I was going to say, I went to a party, I think on Friday night evening with a friend, and it was just, the crowd was so much younger and the music was so loud, and I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, sensory overload. I just want to go home and have a cup of tea. And the two of us were sitting there and we were both thinking the same thing, but we were like, who's going to like stay here longer? So yeah.
There are those realizations, isn't it? I think, did Eve say it or heard it the other day? It's like the hour in the evening is not worth the hour in the morning. It's like, I'd rather the hour in the morning, the extra hour in the morning of getting up early, going reading a book and doing that stuff, than staying out an extra hour at night with the loud music and all the stuff going on. Yeah, definitely signs you're getting old. Or wise, maybe. I think maybe just wise.
Yeah, maybe.
I think before you finish up, we should just say if anybody has any questions regarding photo shoot or diet and stuff, to drop a message on this podcast, because I'm sure this series is going to last a bit.
Yeah, and you'll gradually notice as the weeks go on now. I was saying all this now, by
More
the end
irritable.
of it, this is just going to be a bitching session between us of how annoyed we are.
Little diet faces in 12 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't diet.
Each week we'll be like, yeah, they can't make it today. They're asleep.
Dropping off.
Yeah, or we'll all be doing the podcast, doing steps, all on those walkers.
Yeah.
Like, who can get the most steps in an hour?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we will see you all next week. Thank you for joining.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you found value in today's conversation, do me a favour. Leave a review, share it with a friend, or tag me on social media. Every share and review allows us to reach more people and bring you even more great content. Stay tuned for weekly episodes packed with insights to help you optimize your health, fitness, and mindset. And if you're ready to take things to the next level and join the MC Future Fitness community, click the link in the description, fill in the application, and let's get started. Thanks for tuning in.